Hello, my name is Kathleen Hackett. I'm a SANE nurse here at University Hospital's Cleveland Medical Center, and I'd like to talk to you about a very important topic, human trafficking. January is National Slavery Awareness Month, and human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery. Human trafficking is defined by federal law as the recruitment or obtaining of a person for commercial sex or labor services through methods of force. Human trafficking is a $150 billion per year global enterprise and is happening right in our own backyard. We know human trafficking affects over 1,000 young people in Ohio each year, and it is estimated that more than 3,000 are at risk in our state. A healthcare facility is one of the only places a trafficked person is likely to visit outside his or her trafficking life. 88% of trafficking victims reported being seen in a medical care setting for various injuries or concerns, but never felt comfortable or safe enough to ask for help. Keep your eyes open during clinic visits, especially when domestic violence is a concern or when evaluating homeless or missing persons. 63% of trafficked victims reported going to an emergency room, a rare and excellent opportunity for us to intervene. If you suspect a patient is being trafficked, call 216-443-6085 or the national hotline number at 1-888-373-7888. Let your patient know if they ever feel unsafe. They can text the word HELP to the number 233-7333, matching the words "Be Free," or return to the hospital. Being aware that human trafficking exists is only the first step. For more information, enroll in the Human Trafficking Training video available through LMS. Clinical staff can earn up to 1 continuing education credit for participation. And thank you.
What is the government doing to prevent sex trafficking and human trafficking? Millions of women, men, and children, often held against their will and in slave-like conditions, have been forced into servitude, forced labor, or the commercial sex trade. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry that fuels organized crime enterprises, finances terrorists, imposes social and public health costs, and inflicts grave damage upon its victims. So what is the U.S. government doing to combat these problems? In 2017, Departments of State and Labor and the U.S. Agency for International Development managed a total of 120 international counter-human trafficking projects across more than 40 different countries. These projects have 3 main goals: prevent human trafficking through public awareness, outreach, education, and campaigns, protect and assist victims by providing shelters as well as health, psychological, legal, and vocational services, and prosecute human trafficking by providing training and technical assistance for law enforcement officials such as police, prosecutors, and judges.
The projects work by the state managing a short-term assistance project aimed at protecting human trafficking victims in emergency situations. The project provides shelter, food, counseling, and medical and legal services. The labor managed a product with a goal to help bring local and national laws and policies into alignment with international labor standards. Agencies also addressed human trafficking concerns in projects focused on other issues. For example, the USAID included counter-trafficking and counter-child labor activities in its projects to help rebuild Ghana's fishery industry through responsible practices.
What is human trafficking? Human trafficking is modern-day slavery. It is the exploitation of a person through force, fraud, or coercion. Human smuggling and human trafficking are different crimes. Human smuggling is the illegal movement of someone across a border. Human trafficking is the illegal exploitation of a person. Human trafficking is about exploitation, not transportation. Human trafficking is a highly profitable crime and a violation of human rights. It occurs in every part of the world. including here in the United States. It happens in our big cities, our suburbs, and even in rural towns. It can happen to anyone. Human trafficking victims can be U.S. citizens or from other countries. Victims can be any age, race, or gender. But one thing they share is that they are vulnerable to being exploited. There are different types of human trafficking, including sex trafficking, forced labor, and domestic servitude. Sex trafficking victims are manipulated or forced against their will to engage in sex acts for money. Sex traffickers might use violence, threats, manipulation, or the promise of love and affection to lure victims. Truck stops, hotel rooms, rest areas, street corners, clubs, private residences. These are just some of the places where victims are forced to sell sex. Any person under the age of 18 involved in a commercial sex act is considered a victim of human trafficking. No exceptions. Forced labor takes on many forms, and it happens here in the US and overseas. Through force, fraud, or coercion, victims are made to work for little or no pay. Very often, these victims are forced to manufacture or grow the products that we use and consume every day. Victims of forced labor could be found in factories, on farms, doing construction work, and more. Victims of domestic servitude are hidden in plain sight, forced to work in homes across the United States. Their traffickers sometimes take their identification papers and travel documents in order to limit their freedom. They are prisoners, working as nannies, maids, or domestic help. Every year in the United States, thousands of human trafficking cases are reported, but many more go unnoticed. That's because human trafficking is a hidden crime. Victims might be afraid to come forward, or we may not recognize the signs, even if it's happening right in front of us. We need to bring this crime out of the shadows. That's why the Department of Homeland Security created the Blue Campaign, to take a stand against modern-day slavery and help combat this heinous crime by raising awareness of human trafficking around the country. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. So what can you do to stop human trafficking? Visit the Blue Campaign website to learn more about the signs and indicators of human trafficking. Share this video on social media to help bring this crime out of the shadows. Be an informed consumer. Know who makes the products you buy and the food you eat to help keep slavery-tainted items out of your home. And finally, recognize and report suspected human trafficking. You can submit a tip to federal law enforcement online or by phone. For victim support, you can call or text the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. Help us bring this crime out of the shadows and into the light. Join the Blue Campaign.
Today, if you saw somebody chained to a post, you would do something about it. But in the days of the transatlantic slave trade, it was a normal sight to see. It isn't as clear today of what modern slavery looks like, but by knowing the signs of human trafficking, you can help protect yourself and you can help protect others. Traffickers would often brand their victims with tattoos, using words such as daddy or cash. Trafficking victims may show sudden changes of dress and behavior. They may suddenly have possessions that they usually can't afford. They may have unusually long work hours. Victims may have new relationships with boyfriends or girlfriends that are noticeably older, and I'm not talking about a few years. Difficulty with making eye contact, especially with men. Victims may have untreated medical problems, such as cuts, bruises, burns, broken bones. They may miss school frequently, make frequent trips. Victims may be unable to speak independently. Other people may insist on answering questions for them, or even translating for them. Victims may even be frightened of authorities, seeing them as the bad guys. To request help or report possible human trafficking incidents, please call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, 1-888-3737-888 or text info or help at BeFree 233-733.
What we think the upcoming Congress and President should do about this issue. Bring more light to the subject because it's not a very well known about issue. Protect more people in foster care because it's very common to be sold through human trafficking because they feel like someone cares about them, but they are tricked. Create more task forces that are focused on protecting against human trafficking victims and taking down the criminal organizations. Have more security and protection in high target areas for human trafficking, like in malls, schools, and big cities. And last, create more programs that provide relief to the victims of human trafficking.